We're talking a little bit about the Middle East, and I know this seems like it doesn't relate a lot to your life today, but it does, because I believe the Western way of life is at stake, and this is the final play. Things will start to shake apart. You will start to see Europe start to shake apart. The economies of the world, the currencies of the world will start to shake apart, and we will be more and more active in places like Libya, and then the world will gather to chase the Jews into the sea, and that will spell the end of the West unless we stand together. You hear a lot about the players in the Middle East, like Hamas and Hezbollah, but the truth is, most people don't have a clue. We don't know anything about them. I was the same until recently. I want to show you who they are and what I have found about them. A lot of it is pretty easy. Hezbollah was created back in 1982. It was a group of Islamic Revolutionary Guards from Iran. The goal was to spread the Islamic revolution across the Arab world. Where did that revolution come from? Well, the revolution that was inspired by the Ayatollah Khomeini in Iran. These are the people that are pushing for the new Arab Spring now. Their time has come. At least that's what they believe. Iran's own revolution was started by this guy, and he believed, and so does Hezbollah, that they can make it happen elsewhere. This time, it's for the entire world. Hezbollah is obviously directly tied to Iran and often acts in its behest. Before 9/11, Hezbollah was known as the organization that was responsible for more American deaths than any other terrorist organization. Why? They first appeared on everybody's radar in 1983, the Marine barracks bombing, which took the lives of 241 of our troops. Now, I told you earlier about the roots of the Mufti. Remember, that was the original Mufti. He was a key figure for Muslims in Palestine, especially since he was anti-British and anti-Jewish. Have it? Then we have Hamas. Now, most people don't really understand that Code Pink is standing with Hamas. All these people are standing with Hamas. Hamas grew out of the Muslim Brotherhood. Yes, the same Muslim Brotherhood that our Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, claimed was largely secular, and they hated violence. The founder and the spiritual leader of Hamas was coordinating with the Muslim Brotherhood's political activities in Gaza in the 1970s. He then went on to found Hamas on the local political arm of the Muslim Brotherhood in 1987. A year later, the Hamas Charter was written and published. It specifically rejected the Muslim Brotherhood's policy of non-violence. It is also riddled with anti-Semitism. Please make sure this is up at glennbeck.com and read the Hamas Covenant, as they call it. Right in the charter, and I'm going to read directly from it and quote, "The day of judgment will not come about until Muslims fight the Jews, killing the Jews. When the Jew will hide behind stone and trees, and the stones and trees will say, 'O Muslims, O Abdullah, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him.'" Why is anyone talking about the plight of the Palestinians when we're talking about being in bed with people that say things like this? This is either going to help clear things up and make things make more sense or less sense. You won't understand the actions of our country and our leaders and the whole Western world, quite honestly. But things, after you hear this, make a little more sense on what you're hearing from the Middle East. This quote is from the spiritual leader of the Muslim Brotherhood. He spoke a few months ago in Cairo following the return after Egypt's democratic revolution. First time he could speak there, hundreds of thousands of people showed up. But back in 2009, remember, he said this.
أتمناه في ختام كلمتي هذا أن يهيئ الله لي في ختام حياتي فرصة للذهاب إلى أرض الجهاد والمقاومة على كرسي متحرك فأطلق رصاصة على أعداء الله اليهود.
That sounds an awful lot like the Hamas Charter, doesn't it? We have gotten an awful lot of criticism on this program whenever we talk about the Nazis. Well, you know what? Get over it. The fact is, however, you don't have to go back to Hitler to find violence and vicious hatred and the desire to exterminate an entire race of people. You only have to turn on your news. Check the headlines. You'll see it right before your eyes. But most in the mainstream media will not tie this stuff together. These are people who surround a tiny little country, Israel. These are people who have been trying to wipe out the Western way of life. The same people who flew planes into the World Trade Center. The same people the radicals on the left in America are teaming up with to destroy the Western way of life through Israel. This is why we have to wake up. We have to stand up and be counted. Stand up and restore courage. Stand for Israel now. They are terribly, terribly alone. Does America still stand with Israel? It's our only true Middle East ally. Do we still stand? Tonight I was just talking to one of my producers, and I said, I don't know if anybody even cares. I have no idea. I just know what I'm supposed to do, and I'm hoping it connects with somebody in America and the rest of the world. Tonight we've been going through a lot of history. It's all available at glennbeck.com. I urge you to read it for yourself, share it with your friends, question everything. Don't take anything I say for gospel, because it's not. We do our own homework. I suggest you do yours. You'll have a better understanding of the hatred that is happening now in the Middle East, and you'll understand the roots of it, and you'll be able to understand which side of the argument you need to be on. Check it out at glennbeck.com. There's also another story today from a book by Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro is going to be on my radio program tomorrow, but he wrote a book, and he's got a quote in it from one of the founders of the children's show Sesame Street, admitting to liberal propaganda with our kids. My wife read that to me last night. We both looked at each other and went, no. It's not much of a surprise to anybody who has seen the show, but here is the propaganda that the Muslim children in the Middle East are subject to. It's a little different.
اليهود الوحشين يستعدوا ويخلوا الأطفال الصغيرين يعملوا حاجات وحشة كتير علشان يكرهوا الإسلام ويموتوا كل إخواتنا المسلمين هناك.
كان في الخليقة من وحوش كاسرة، من طيور جارحة، من زواحف مؤذية، من حشرات ضارة، من ميكروبات فتاكة، خطرها أدنى بكثير من خطر اليهود.
صهيون في الأرض طاغي وضار، ولادي على الطامعين الطغاة، براكين توشك على الانفجار.
ببینید در جنگ جهانی دوم خیلی کشته شدن. هدفی که استفاده میکنن این موضوع قدیمی و کهنه صهیونیسم و هولوکاست رو استفاده میکنن. این به ضرر خودشونه.
It's unbelievable. This is what's on their television. Remember, after 9/11, when the cries were all heard all across the Middle East, that it was the Jews, that the Jews had advance warning. Ahmadinejad thinks this. He said, and I quote, "No Zionists were killed in the World Trade Center because one day earlier they were all told not to go to their workplace." So, no Jews died? Really? Yes, according to those in the Middle East, it was all just a Jewish conspiracy. Ahmadinejad also thinks there was a big Jewish conspiracy trying to cause war in the Middle East. He just warned about that just the other day. Just today, he reiterated his anti-Zionist beliefs, quote, "Today, we must see to it that Iran and Egypt are two developed, powerful countries, anti-arrogance and anti-Zionist." Remember when they made fun of me for saying that those two countries would ever come together and be like-minded. Well, if you know history, you know that that's not so crazy. They said it in the 1920s in Germany. Mein Kampf was published in 1925, and by 1945, 6 million Jews had been murdered. Because no one, they all say, everyone in Germany will say to you today, we didn't know. America, we won't have that excuse. You know. Your neighbors know. They're bearing their heads. We must not do it. If you really want to find the oppressed, you can find oppressed people on all sides. But if you look at the oppressed throughout history, if you want to really find a group of people that have been kicked out of every single country on earth and have never had a place to rest their head, take a look at this list again. There is clearly only one target. Look at the list over and over and over and over and over again. The Holocaust was only one time. The target is the same, the Jewish people. I believe there's no conspiracy here. The only conspiracy is why? Why? I believe so many people don't pay attention. They just don't care. Some people just allow stereotypes and hatred to fester. Many people dismiss it. Oh, they'll never do that. But there are those who know exactly what they're doing. It doesn't matter the motivation or the level of understanding. It doesn't change the meaning of their actions, nor yours. The choice is in front of each and every one of us, and we are all responsible for our own actions. The choice is coming, and I believe it's here. We must choose. Are we going to be a force for good, or are we going to be a force for evil? And remember, to not speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. In a minute, I want to go back to the very beginning of this program. And I want to show you again what happened in 175 BC that is now happening in San Francisco. And an amazing coincidence. Tonight, we are going over history. Tomorrow is an amazing program that you do not want to miss. But in this segment, I want to go back to the first date that we told you about. It was 175 BC. It was the king of Syria. This is when Syria outlawed circumcision. It was back then that the king of Syria thought the Jews were responsible for all the trouble, so he started banning things, and circumcision was one of them. I found this interesting last night as I was doing my research because I had just read about San Francisco. They're trying to do the same thing. They're trying to ban circumcision. They're saying it's health reasons. Well, this is commonly practiced by Gentiles. It is commonly practiced now by Muslims, but it is also a Jewish rite. In fact, it is a token of the covenant with God. Got it? So it's practiced by a vast majority of everybody. But on the city's next election, on the ballot, in November, there will be a vote on that election to ban circumcision for boys under the age of 18. Now, it is amazing to me how you can go back in history and see the same pattern happening over and over and over again. 175 BC and now today in San Francisco. I believe it has nothing to do with health. It has everything to do with anti-Semitism. And it is evil. And I know that is quite a statement to say that ban is evil. Last night, as I was doing research for my everything that we're doing this summer, I closed up my notes and I went to bed. I went to bed and I opened up Genesis 17. That's where I happened to be reading last night, was 17. Coincidentally, it's the part where Abram becomes Abraham. And at that time, God gives him a promise. He says, I'll make a covenant with you and your people. I'll be your God and I'll give you something else. But in exchange, you'll give me circumcision. You'll have that as a token of this. I don't know if anybody in San Francisco has a clue as to what they're doing. I don't believe they're doing this for health. Some may be. I don't believe that's where it really comes from. I don't think they understand that by banning circumcision, they are forcing a people to break a covenant with God, one of the oldest. And isn't it interesting that the covenant that they would be forcing people to break is the one that God said, you do this, and I will give you the land of Canaan for all eternity. The land of Canaan, which is now known as Israel. A coincidence? You decide.